everyone. This week we're going to be talking about control charts. There are two main types of control charts for variables and control charts for attributes. The main difference between them is variables is some kind of measurement that you take from a process or a situation, and an attribute is whether or not something meets a specification, whether or not it's conforming or non-conforming. So let's take the example of my office temperature. I really like it warm in my office, and I prefer that to be about 78 Fahrenheit. Yes, I know that's way warmer than normal. But I can measure that on a control chart to see, all right, how is my office temperature doing? And there's two ways I can do that. I can do a variable control chart where I'm actually plotting the temperature reading off of the thermostat, so that's my variables. Or I can do an attribute, and that's whether or not I have to adjust my space heater. So that means that the temperature is not conforming if I have to adjust my space heater. So let's take a look what that looks like in terms of control charts. Here's a sample X-bar chart for this process. So here you can see my average temperature is just over 77. That's that black line right here. The blue is how the temperature fluctuates in my office over a set time. Subgroup is each temperature measurement I'm taking. And so you can see that, yeah, the temperature is not constant, but it's not out of control. It's not outside these red lines, which are my action limits. And that's when I have to do something if a point is outside those limits. And it's mostly within my warning limits. And these limits are statistically set where your action limits are typically 3 standard deviations away from your mean, and your warning limits are 2 standard deviations away from your mean. So in terms of my little control chart here, we're doing pretty good in terms of temperature. It's not set at a temperature exactly. I'm not working in an incubator, but it's pretty good. Now let's take a look at an attribute chart for this, because that'll tell us slightly different information. So by our variable chart, our process is in control, in statistical control. If we look at our attribute chart, all right, on average I have to adjust my space heater somewhere around 3.7, so let's say 4 times per day, which means, okay, this process is in control too. You don't see anything really outside even the warning limits, so it's a statistical control. But if I have to adjust my space heater that often, then the process is not as controlled as I want it. So keep that in mind, that control charts are really good for telling you, are you in statistical control? They may not tell you, are you producing what you want to? So think about that, and think about what type of chart is appropriate for different circumstances. Do I want, for example, to plot my office temperature on a variable chart or an attribute chart? Well, it depends on what I want to do. If I want to monitor the temperature, just temperature over time, then I use a variable chart. If I want to see how often I have to adjust that temperature, then I want to use an attribute chart, because I can see how many times I have to adjust my space heater on that chart. I can't see that on my variable chart. Keep in mind that if you have variable data, you can actually convert it to attribute data. So if I have this variable chart again, and let's say I'm going to start adjusting my space heater when it hits 76 or below, because I don't like that being cold. And I'm also going to adjust my space heater when I'm above 79, because that's too warm. I like to keep it right at an average temperature around here. So if I have a temperature range where I say I don't have to adjust my space heater, then I can convert, if I'm inside versus outside that temperature range, to an attribute. Yes, it's good, I don't have to adjust, or no, it's not good, I need to adjust. So you can go from variable data to attribute data, but you can't necessarily go back. So these are all things to think about as you're working on your control charts this week and over the next couple weeks, and as you are converting your measured data in your project to some form of analysis. If you use a control chart, think about what control chart you want to use and what is going to best reflect the process that you are working on fixing.